The battery and the rack have come in and now they're installed, so I'm just going to go over some problems that I experienced with the rack installation on the Townie. Now, the Townie is not really made to take a standard rack, and the reason why is that because of their what they call their flat foot, I believe, technology, which is that the seat post is on a fairly sharp angle that allows you to fully extend for pedaling, but also put your feet down to the ground. That's really a problem with the rack because it interferes with the actual raising and lowering of the seat. Now, if you're lucky to be tall and able to raise the seat above the rack, then you've got really no problem. My wife is not that case, so she has to have the seat fairly low, which means that it automatically interferes with the rack. So I had to do a lot of futzing around to get the rack put on so that the seat could be lowered into a position that was suitable for her. Luckily I had some pieces of a previous rack that I could use as part of the extra bracing. So this rack comes with an extender rod to allow you to raise the rack above a certain level. So I use that to actually extend it to the rear of the bicycle and then added extra bracing to support the rack, being further out. So now that's sort of cantilevered off of this extra piece that was with the rack. And that's not very good because that's a lot of weight that's going to be seeing shock on this piece, which could cause it to crack. With this extra piece and the support bracing here, this actually gives it a fairly rigid mounting, so I'm not too worried about that actually breaking. The battery itself is a 17.5 amp hour battery. It's a 48 volt stock voltage. It comes with about 120-ish watt charger. It's 120 to 240 type input, so it's a universal input. Now, I wasn't too happy with when I unpacked this and saw that there was damage to the edge of the battery, which made me think that this had been used previously. Now, I still can't say one way or the other whether it has been used or not, but it seems to work fine. I'm not seeing any problems. There is a USB charger port on it, which is useful. There's also, if you look on the back side, you have our fuse location, the main cutoff switch, and then down below here is for the rear light. Now, I've got a bit of mud on mine because when I actually tried the bike out, my son took it on trails and, needless to say, got mud everywhere. That was sort of an incentive to go and purchase some bike fenders. Now, with the chain guard, in part one I had mentioned that the original bracket that I created was a bad idea. And the reason why is that the bike chain guard was now referenced to the motor, which could rotate slightly until it had seated itself. And the other end of the chain guard was attached to the bike frame. So what happened was that the minute I applied torque to the motor, it caused this to twist slightly, and then the bracket I had in there broke off. So I've printed up a 3D printed bracket with a plate to mount to, and now the chain guard is referenced to the bike frame, which is stationary, and there's no more risk of the motor torquing and causing the bracket to break. The last thing that I added was a gear changer detector, and this gets in line with the actual cable for the rear chain set. So when that cable slides, it detects motion and then cuts the motor out for a period of time. And it's again, it's pretty easy to install. The thing you do have to do is you have to buy your actual cable housing and fit it on here in order for this to work correctly. So the last thing that was added was a set of fenders. Now these are stock Electra fenders intended for the Townie 7D step through. So I had no problems fitting it on the front. They look good, nice flat matte black. However, on the rear, we ran into the same problem of fit, because with the bike rack being pushed back as far as it is, it now interferes with the struts that hold the fender in place. Fortunately, the kit for the fenders came with a shorter strut, which I'm not really sure what it's for. However, it with a little bit of tweaking worked, and as you can see, it fits with proper clearance, and again, looks pretty good. So some of the problems that I faced with this kit that I didn't mention before was I had a lot of problems with some of the screws not threading correctly, and one of the places that gave me a lot of problem was one of the motor mounts. And what I found was that as soon as I started screwing it in, it felt like it had already been a bad thread to begin with. I hadn't cross-threaded it, and yet it was giving pretty quickly, so I wasn't able to put the correct torque amount on the screw. So what I ended up doing was threading in a much longer M6 screw and putting some Loctite on it. So the hope is that won't loosen up, and that the other screw, it appeared to take full torque that was required for that size. And I'm hoping that between the Loctite and the torquing of the other one, that I'm not going to see any major loosening of this assembly. Important thing to realize is that you do need a bottom bracket tool, which you can get in a toolkit you can buy, or you can buy it separately. If you're going to be working on bicycles, I would recommend buying a toolkit. One of the problems with trying to remove the bottom bracket was that you need quite a bit of torque to loosen it up. And again, if you happen to have an impact socket wrench, then this makes it a lot easier to remove that bottom bracket. Of course, not everyone has one, but they're not that expensive, and they come on sale at the local hardware store, so definitely worth it for trying to remove the bottom bracket. You can do it with a breaker borer, but I found I couldn't get the one on the crank side or the sprocket side to loosen. So the impact wrench made quick work of it. So with the battery installed, there is quite a bit of weight on the rear end, which makes it a little more difficult to handle the bike, but it's manageable. And with the low center of gravity with the mid motor, that helps out. And mine comes up in default in the #1 pedal assist, as you can see here. So the display is quite visible, and even in sunlight it's quite visible. So the only thing is, I haven't checked in to see what it takes to calibrate this for the speed sensor. So the speed sensor as you can actually see down here. Oops. You know, it's expecting a certain distance from the center, and that's going to affect what the apparent speed that you're going. So, you know, if you get it too far out from what it's been calibrated for, it will appear that you're going much faster than you are, and vice versa. If you go too far in, again, it'll appear like you're going slower than you really are. So that could be a way, if you don't know how to change the parameters, to set up it for a maximal speed. In addition, you know, one of the other things that I found was that they provided stickers to allow you to change the stamping of the motor from a 750 watt to a 250 watt, and I don't know if mine is on or not. Well, yes, it is. So yes, if you're pulled over, you can honestly say your sticker says you're 250 watt. So yeah, if this has been helpful in putting your bike together, or deciding on whether you want to convert your bike to electric, I would say that with little skill you can do it pretty quickly. It wasn't the 2.5 hour time period that I thought it was going to, but it isn't going to take you a week to do either. So good luck if you choose, and hopefully I'll have more details on how this kit works out.